The golden light of a Tuscan sunset was my specialty. I knew exactly how to capture it, how to frame Tyler's silhouette against the bruised purple and soft orange of the sky, his hand reaching for mine just out of frame. The caption would be effortless. Chasing sunsets with my one and only. It would get 50,000 likes in an hour. What it wouldn't show was the argument that preceded it. Tyler's voice a low hiss in the rented Fiat because I'd suggested we just watch the sunset for once, without the camera. It wouldn't show him grabbing my wrist, his fingers digging in just enough to leave a faint mark. His words, "Don't be ungrateful, Emma. This is our life." He was right. It was what they wanted to see. It was the life that paid for the Fiat, the villa, the trip to Tuscany. It was the life that was slowly, meticulously killing me. Our apartment back in Austin was a testament to our brand. Cream-colored furniture, pompous grass in tall ceramic vases that shed if you breathed on them too hard, and coffee table books arranged in aesthetically pleasing stacks. It was a showroom, not a home. Every corner was a potential backdrop, every object a prop. The performance began the moment we woke up. One morning, the sunlight streamed through the gauzy curtains in a way that I knew would look perfect on camera. I started to make coffee, just for us, when Tyler came into the kitchen, already in character. "Babe, this light is amazing." My heart sank. That meant at least an hour of work. He art-directed the entire scene, placing 2 pristine white mugs just so, scattering a few coffee beans on the marble countertop for texture, and instructing me to put on one of his button-down shirts and nothing else. "It's sexier, more authentic," he'd said, though it felt like a costume. I had to remake his latte 3 times because the foam art, a heart I'd painstakingly drizzled, wasn't symmetrical enough. "It looks lopsided," he critiqued, his tone that of a disappointed director. "It implies imbalance." When we finally got the shot, me laughing, looking up at him adoringly as I took a delicate sip from the perfect mug, the coffee was cold. The smile felt like a mask crack in my face. He posted it with the caption, "Waking up next to her is the best part of my day. Simple joys." And the likes poured in. A digital validation of a moment that had been anything but simple or joyous. The worst was our anniversary. For our 3rd anniversary, Tyler planned an elaborate surprise. Or rather, he planned an elaborate photoshoot disguised as a surprise. He had me get dressed up in a silk gown, telling me he was taking me to the city's finest restaurant. Instead, he led me into our own living room, which he had filled with hundreds of white balloons and flickering candles. A professional photographer was there, waiting. "Surprise," he said, beaming for the camera. Not for me. For 2 hours, we posed. We kissed under the balloon archway he'd rented. He pretended to gift me a diamond necklace that was on loan from a local jeweler for the shoot. I had to feign tears of joy over and over until the photographer got the perfect shot. The whole time, my stomach was in knots. This wasn't a celebration of our love, it was a commercial for it. After the photographer left, Tyler immediately began editing the photos on his phone. We ate takeout pizza on the floor, surrounded by the deflating balloons, the magic dissolving as quickly as it had been manufactured. The post went up the next day, a carousel of perfectly lit romantic images. 3 years with my soulmate, he wrote. The lie was so beautiful, even I almost believed it. My 400,000 followers on Instagram saw the curated perfection. They saw weekend trips to charming bed and breakfasts, and Tyler surprising me with bouquets of peonies, my favorite. What they didn't see was that the peonies were a brand deal, and Tyler had negotiated the contract to have his name mentioned first in the caption. They saw a man who adored me, a relationship that was the epitome of on couple goals. They saw the carefully constructed fantasy that earned me $120,000 a year, every cent of which flowed directly into a joint account that Tyler, with a patronizing smile, insisted on managing. "You're the creative genius, babe," he'd say, tapping my nose. "Let me handle the boring numbers stuff." The team, I was beginning to realize, had a CEO and an unpaid, overworked intern. I was the intern. I created the product, shot the content, wrote the captions, and engaged with the audience. Tyler's role was to exist beautifully within the frame, to be the object of my staged affection, and to approve every single post before it went live. His critiques were a masterclass in psychological warfare, disguised as brand management. "Your smile looks a little forced in that one, don't you think? It makes me look like I'm not making you happy," he'd murmur, scrolling through the shots on my camera. Or, "This caption is a bit needy." Anything that didn't present him as the flawless, ideal boyfriend was vetoed. He was the director, the producer, and the star of the Emma and Tyler show. I was just the set. The isolation was gradual, a slow turning down of the world's volume until the only voice I heard was his. Old friends from college would text, "Let's get brunch," and I'd have to invent excuses. Tyler didn't like them. He said they were jealous of our success and that their negative energy was bad for my creative flow. We went to dinner once with my best friend from college, Sarah, and I made the mistake of complaining about a difficult brand negotiation. Sarah, ever the loyal friend, said, "It sounds like they're taking advantage of you." I saw a flicker of something dark in Tyler's eyes. In the car on the way home, the silence was glacial. "Sarah has a big mouth," he finally said, his hands tight on the steering wheel. "She thinks she knows our business." He insisted she was a bad influence, and from then on, every time Sarah called, he would sigh dramatically or find some urgent task for me to do. Eventually, the calls became less frequent. He had methodically and effectively cut every cord that tied me to a world outside of him. My family, who lived just 2 hours away in San Antonio, got the same treatment. The boundaries he set were fortress walls, and I was trapped inside with him. My platform, my supposed connection to a global community, had become the most beautiful, sun-drenched prison in the world. I was connected to hundreds of thousands of people, yet I had never felt so profoundly alone. The breaking point didn't come with a roar, but with a click. The click of my camera shutter at a local farmer's market on a Saturday morning. The air was thick with the smell of kettle corn and fresh-cut flowers, a chaotic symphony of chatter and laughter all around us. For a fleeting moment, I felt like a normal person. We were buying tomatoes, and I was genuinely enjoying the simple act of it. That's when I saw it. The expression on Tyler's face. He was squinting into the sun, a faint line of annoyance between his brows as he waited for me to finish talking to a vendor about the difference between a Brandywine and a Cherokee Purple. He looked real. Not like the smoldering, perfect man from our travel photos, but like a regular person, momentarily irritated on a hot day. I loved it. It was a crack of authenticity in our polished facade, a breath of fresh air in our suffocatingly perfect world. I raised my phone and snapped the picture before the moment vanished. I posted it from my phone as we walked, with a playful caption, "Heirloom tomatoes are serious business." My heart was doing a funny little flutter. It felt like a small act of rebellion, a tiny piece of the old me resurfacing. The response was immediate and overwhelming. "My followers loved it," one commented. "Haha, this is my husband every time I go to Target," wrote another. The engagement was through the roof. For the first time in months, I felt that buzz of genuine connection, the reason I'd started my blog in the first place. I was still smiling at the comments when Tyler's text came through. It was like a bucket of ice water. "Take it down." My fingers trembled as I typed back, "Why? People love it." His reply was instantaneous. "It makes me look bad. You're humiliating me. Take it." A cold dread washed over me, extinguishing the brief warmth of my rebellion. He wasn't just the director, he was a tyrant, and I had broken his most sacred rule. I had made him look human. When he got home that evening, the air in our perfect apartment was thick and cold. He didn't shout. That wasn't his style. He moved with a terrifying, deliberate calm. He placed his keys in the ceramic bowl by the door with a soft click, the sound echoing in the tense silence. I was sitting on the cream-colored couch, my laptop open on my lap, pretending to edit photos. He walked over and stood behind me, forcing me to crane my neck to see him. He didn't look at me. He looked at the screen, at the picture of him squinting in the sun, at the thousands of comments praising its realism. He said, his voice a low vibration that seemed to shake the floor. "No, Tyler, of course not," I stammered, my mouth suddenly dry. It was just a fun picture. He finally moved, walking around the couch to stand in front of me. He looked down, and his eyes were flat, devoid of any of the warmth he performed for the camera. "I want to be aspirational. We are aspirational. That is the brand. That is the entire foundation of our income." He was standing over me now, his shadow swallowing me. "You've embarrassed me, Emma." "That's not true. They love it," I protested, my voice small, pathetic even to my own ears. My heart was a frantic bird beating against my ribs. "They're laughing at me," he snapped, the calm cracking just for a second, revealing the rage beneath. His nostrils flared. "They're seeing a man who is annoyed, who is imperfect, and it's your fault." He gestured wildly at the apartment, at the life he claimed to have given me. "This, the trips, the life you have, it's because of the image I've cultivated, an image of perfection, and you're destroying it." The accusation was so hypocritical, it almost made me laugh. I whispered, incredulous, "Yes, yours." He hissed, "You couldn't stand me being the star for 1 second, could you? You had to knock me down a peg, make me look like some schmuck at a farmer's market." Tears welled in my eyes, hot and shameful. I felt myself shrinking under his gaze. "I'm sorry," I whispered, staring at the keyboard. "It's too late for that," he said, his voice dropping back to that chilling calm. "The damage is done. You've shown you can't be trusted." He reached down, and for a terrifying second I flinched, thinking he was going to hit me. My whole body tensed, but he didn't. He grabbed my laptop, my world, my connection to everything. He held it in his hands, his knuckles white. The faint scent of his cologne, a scent I used to love, now smelled like menace. "You need to be punished," he said softly, almost tenderly. And then he turned and slammed the laptop against the pristine white wall. The sound was a violent crack, an explosion of plastic and metal that echoed in the cavernous silence of the room. It was followed by the tinkle of shattering components hitting the hardwood floor. I screamed. It was a raw, guttural sound that I didn't recognize as my own. He threw the mangled sparking machine onto the floor. The screen was a spider web of black and green glitches. The keyboard bent into a grotesque smile. The smell of burning electronics filled the air, acrid and final. "There," he said, breathing heavily, his chest rising and falling. "No more mistakes." He turned back to me, my scream still hanging in the air between us. His face was a mask of cold fury. "Now you're going to get on your phone and you are going to delete it all. Instagram, the blog, everything. We're starting over." I stared at the smoking corpse of my laptop, the symbol of my entire career, my entire life for the past 4 years. The shock was a physical blow, leaving me numb and breathless. But as the seconds ticked by, something else began to move through the ice in my veins. A slow, creeping heat. In that moment of absolute devastation, a switch flipped in my brain. The fear was still there, a cold, hard knot in my stomach. But underneath it, something else was born. A white-hot, diamond-hard rage. He hadn't just smashed a piece of electronics. He had smashed the last remaining piece of my illusion. The illusion that this was a partnership. The illusion that he loved me. The illusion that any of this was real. He hadn't punished me. He had liberated me. He just didn't know it yet. For 2 days, I was the model of remorse. I cried. I apologized profusely. I told him he was right, that I had been selfish and short-sighted. It was the most convincing performance of my life. Tyler supervised the entire process, standing over my shoulder as I typed, dictating the words. "Make it sound authentic," he coached, as if he knew the first thing about the concept. It was a sickening performance, but it bought me the one thing I needed: time. He believed he had won, that he had broken me, and could now remold me into a more compliant version of myself. He was so caught up in his victory that he didn't notice the subtle shift in my eyes, the new calculating hardness that had replaced the fear. While he was at the gym, I began my work. The apartment, once my prison, now became my secret headquarters. My laptop was gone, but I still had my phone. With trembling hands, I logged into our joint bank account. My heart hammered against my ribs, each beat a drum of war. I'd see the deposits come in from brand deals, 5,000 here, 10,000 there, but I never tracked where it went. I just trusted him. The word tasted like ash in my mouth now. I started scrolling through the transaction history, going back months, then years. Every creak of the floorboards in the hallway made me jump, my thumb instantly switching the app to my email inbox. It was a sea of familiar expenses: rent for our overpriced apartment, payments for the leased BMW, charges for flights and hotels and clothes we used as props. Then I saw it. A transfer. 2 months ago, $15,000. It wasn't to a credit card or a utility company. My blood ran cold. I scrolled further back, my breath held tight in my chest. Another one, 6 months ago, $20,000, same account number. A wave of nausea washed over me. I kept going, my thumb swiping frantically, my vision blurring. 10,000, 5,000, another 20. Over and over again for 2 years, a steady siphon of my earnings into a secret account. An account that I knew with a sickening certainty had only one name on it: Tyler Morrison. I did the math on my phone's calculator, my fingers shaking so badly I had to re-enter the numbers 3 times. The total came to $85,000. $85,000 of my money, my work, my life. He hadn't just been controlling me, he had been systematically robbing me. The rage that had been simmering inside me now boiled over into a cold, clear resolve. This wasn't just a bad relationship anymore. This was a crime. I became a spy in my own home. Every word out of his mouth, every calculated act of forgiveness, was now filtered through the lens of this new, horrific knowledge. The way he'd bring me coffee in the morning wasn't kindness. It was a way to keep me docile. The way he'd talk about our future wasn't about love. It was about securing his access to my future earnings. I started documenting everything. I took screenshots of the bank transfers and saved them to a secret, encrypted cloud account he didn't know existed. I used a voice memo app on my phone to record our conversations. One evening, I baited him. I pretended to be worried about our finances, about the smashed laptop. "I just feel so bad, babe," I said, my voice thick with fake tears as we sat on the couch. "I know I messed up with that post, but the laptop, that's a huge business expense." He draped an arm around me, his touch making my skin crawl. I had to fight the urge to recoil. "Don't you worry your pretty little head about it," he cooed, the condescension dripping from every word. "I've been smart with our money. I've been investing it, making sure we're secure for the long term. You just focus on being creative." The recording of that conversation, with his casual admission of controlling our money, became Exhibit A in my secret file. Later that week, fueled by a terrifying boldness, I searched his closet while he showered. My hands trembled as I sifted through his things. Tucked away in a folder of old car maintenance records, I found it. The paperwork for his secret savings account. I photographed every page. Each piece of evidence was a brick in the foundation of my escape plan. The hardest part was the performance. I had to smile at him, kiss him, pretend that everything was fine, that I was the same broken, compliant girl he thought I was. I had to act like his punishment had worked. Inside, I was a coiled spring of fury and fear. Every minute I spent in that apartment was a risk. One night, I was on my phone in bed, uploading the latest piece of evidence, when he walked into the room unexpectedly. I fumbled the phone, quickly switching the screen to a mindless game. He eyed me with suspicion. "Nothing," I said, my heart threatening to beat its way out of my chest. "Just playing this stupid game." He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes searching my face for any sign of deception. It was the longest 10 seconds of my life. I held his gaze, forcing my expression to remain placid, innocent. Finally, he grunted and went into the bathroom. I didn't breathe again until I heard the shower turn on. That was the night I knew I couldn't wait any longer. The risk was too great. It was time to call for help. The next morning, while Tyler was out for his morning run, I took my phone into the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the shower to mask the sound. The first result was for a local women's center. My finger hovered over the call button for a full minute. Making this call would make it real. It would mean admitting to a stranger that the perfect life I broadcast to the world was a lie, that I was a victim. It felt like a monumental failure. But then I thought of the $85,000. I thought of the sound of my laptop smashing against the wall. I thought of the dead look in his eyes. I pressed the button. A woman's voice, calm and warm, answered on the second ring. I opened my mouth, but only a choked sob came out. Maria asked gently. "Yes," I whispered, the word cracking. "I think so." And then it all came pouring out. The curated life, the control, the isolation, the smashed laptop, the stolen money. I spoke in a hushed, frantic torrent, terrified Tyler would return early. Maria listened patiently, her silence a comforting presence. When I finished, breathless and crying, she said the words that changed everything. "Emma, thank you for being so brave. None of this is your fault. What you're describing is a classic case of narcissistic abuse, including severe financial abuse, and we can help you." For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. Maria became my secret lifeline, my strategist. She put me in touch with a pro bono lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Sarah, who specialized in cases of financial abuse within domestic partnerships. I met Sarah in a noisy coffee shop on the other side of town, the smell of roasted beans and the clatter of ceramic mugs a welcome shield of normalcy. My hands were shaking as I handed her a flash drive containing all the evidence I had collected. Sarah plugged the drive into her own laptop, her expression grim as she looked at the bank statements and listened to the audio recordings through her headphones. She looked up at me, her eyes full of a fierce, protective fire. "He didn't just steal your money, Emma," she said, her voice firm, cutting through my fear. "He committed fraud. This isn't a messy breakup. This is a crime. With this evidence, we can not only sue him for every penny, but we can also press criminal charges. He made a very, very big mistake when he put his theft in writing." Hearing a legal expert validate my reality was like a shot of adrenaline. I wasn't a scorned girlfriend. I was a plaintiff in a criminal case. The next 2 weeks were a blur of clandestine activity. With the help of the Women's Center, I found a small new-build apartment complex with high security and month-to-month leases. I signed the lease electronically under my full name, Emma Rodriguez, dropping the Morrison-adjacent persona I had adopted online. I paid the deposit and first month's rent with a new bank account, funded by the emergency credit card Sarah had helped me open. The feeling of having a bank account with only my name on it was dizzying. It was the first breath of freedom. Packing was the most nerve-wracking part. I had to do it in small, unnoticeable increments. A few favorite books slipped into a tote bag I kept in my car. My important documents, passport, birth certificate, hidden in a shoebox at the back of my closet. I bought a new laptop, a burner phone, and a large external hard drive, paying in cash. This would be my new arsenal. One afternoon, while putting away laundry, Tyler nearly found the shoebox. He asked, pulling it from the shelf. My blood turned to ice. "Oh, just old cards and letters," I said, my voice miraculously steady. He shrugged, uninterested, and put it back. My knees felt weak with relief. The day before I planned to leave, I went to a big box store and bought a dozen cardboard moving boxes. When Tyler came home and saw them, he raised an eyebrow. I gave him my most brilliant, practiced smile. I chirped, thought I'd finally organize the closets and donate some of this old stuff we never use. He bought it. He even patted me on the back and said, "Good idea, babe." He had no idea how fresh it was going to be. D-Day, the day of my escape. I chose a Tuesday. Tyler had a standing 2-hour lunch meeting with a brand manager across town every Tuesday. It was my window. I watched from the window as his BMW pulled out of the garage, and my body flooded with adrenaline. The moment it was out of sight, I moved like a tornado. I grabbed the pre-packed boxes, the hidden tote bags, the shoebox of documents. My hands were shaking, but my movements were efficient. I loaded everything into my car, my eyes constantly darting to the street, terrified he would reappear. The last thing I took was the external hard drive. It contained my entire case against him and my entire future. As I stood in the doorway of the perfect apartment for the last time, I took one final look around. The pampas grass, the cream couch, the sterile showroom-like emptiness of it all. It wasn't a home, it was a stage. A beautiful, expensive cage where I had performed the role of a happy, fulfilled woman. And now, the show was over. I didn't leave a note. My final statement wouldn't be written on paper. It would be broadcast to the world. My new apartment was small, sterile, and gloriously empty. It smelled of fresh paint and new carpets, the scent of a blank slate. There was no cream-colored furniture, no strategically placed props. There was just me, my boxes, and my new laptop sitting on the floor. For a moment, the enormity of what I had done washed over me. I was completely alone. But as I plugged in the laptop and the screen flickered to life, the fear was replaced by a surge of pure, unadulterated power. I didn't bother with perfect lighting or a flattering angle. I sat on the floor, the beige wall of my empty apartment behind me, and propped my new phone up on a stack of books. For a second, my finger hovered over the record button. A wave of doubt crashed over me. What if no one believes me? What if this ruins me completely? A voice that sounded a lot like Tyler's whispered in my head, "You're nothing without me." Then I pictured his face as he smashed my laptop, the look of cold satisfaction in his eyes, and the doubt vanished, replaced by cold resolve. I hit record. I looked directly into the camera lens, not as Emma the influencer, but as Emma Rodriguez, a 27-year-old woman who is about to tell the truth for the first time in a very long time. "Hi, everyone," I began, my voice steady, clearer than it had been in years. "For the last 4 years, you've known me as one half of a perfect couple. You've seen our travels, our perfect home, our seemingly perfect life. I talked for 22 minutes. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I simply, factually laid out the truth. My throat was dry and my hands were clenched into fists in my lap, but I pushed on. I talked about the control, the staged photos, the constant pressure to perform. I talked about the isolation from my friends and family. I described in calm, measured detail the night he smashed my laptop because I posted a picture he didn't like. And then I moved on to the money. For years, I believed we were a team, building a future together, I said, looking into the camera as if I were speaking to each of my 400,000 followers personally. I let my partner manage our finances, believing he had our best interests at heart. And then, using simple editing software, I put the evidence on the screen. The screenshots of the bank statements with the transfers and his name circled in red. The photograph of the application for his secret account. Then I played the audio clip of him admitting to it. His condescending voice filled the silence. I finished my story, my raw, unvarnished truth hanging in the air. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy," I said, my voice unwavering. I'm telling you this because I know I'm not the only one living a life that looks perfect on the outside, but is crumbling on the inside. Emotional abuse and financial abuse are invisible, but they are real, and they are devastating. The pressure to be perfect online is creating prisons for so many people. I titled the video, "The Truth Behind the Perfect Couple," and I took a deep breath. The silence in the empty apartment was deafening. I just sat there watching the screen, my heart pounding. The view count started to tick up, 10, 100, 1,000. Then the comments began to roll in. At first, they were confused. But as people watched, the tone shifted, shock, outrage, and then an overwhelming flood of support. Women started sharing their own stories in the comments, a tidal wave of shared experience that I had unknowingly unleashed. My phone started buzzing incessantly. A text from Sarah, my old college friend. "Oh my God, Emma, I just saw. I knew he was a snake. I'm on my way over. Send me your address." Tears pricked my eyes. Then a call from my mom. I answered, and her tearful voice was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. "Oh, mija, I'm so sorry. I knew it." The dam of my isolation broke, and a lifetime of support came rushing back in. An hour later, there was a knock on the door. It was Sarah, holding 2 large pizza boxes and a 6-pack of my favorite cider. When I opened the door, she just dropped everything on the floor and wrapped me in a hug. I buried my face in her shoulder and finally let myself sob. We sat on the floor of my empty apartment, eating pizza out of the box, and for the first time in years, I felt safe. Within an hour, the video had 100,000 views. By the end of the day, it had 1 million. News outlets started writing articles. The story had gone viral. But I had receipts. The internet tore him apart. Within 24 hours, he had deleted all of his social media accounts and disappeared. The following day, guided by my lawyer, I walked into a police station and filed a report. The detective, a woman with kind eyes and a firm handshake, had already seen my video. With the evidence I provided, the district attorney's office filed criminal charges against Tyler for fraud and financial abuse. The lawsuit Sarah filed on my behalf was a slam dunk. Faced with irrefutable evidence and public humiliation, Tyler settled immediately, agreeing to pay back the full $85,000 plus my legal fees. The check arrived 2 months later, and as I deposited it into my own personal bank account, I felt a sense of closure that was more satisfying than any revenge. Months have passed. My new apartment is no longer empty. My mom and Sarah came over the first weekend, and we spent a Saturday laughing and struggling to assemble a cheap bookshelf, a rite of passage I'd never had. It's filled now with mismatched furniture from thrift stores, photos of my real friends and family on the walls, and the happy chaos of a life that is truly my own. My platform has grown to over 1 million followers, but it's different now. I don't post about perfect sunsets or staged romantic gestures. I post about the warning signs of emotional abuse. I host live sessions with therapists and financial advisors. Last week, a young woman sent me a message. She said my video gave her the courage to look at her own perfect relationship and realize she was being financially controlled. She'd opened her own bank account that day. Reading her message, I felt a sense of purpose that 1,000 sponsored posts could never give me. I am more successful, more fulfilled, and more myself than I ever was when I was pretending. Sometimes I think about that life, That girl who so expertly curated a beautiful lie while her own world fell apart. I don't feel shame or regret, only a profound sense of gratitude that I found my way out. The other day, I was at the farmer's market, the same one from that fateful photo. The sun was bright, the air smelled of ripe peaches and fresh basil. I bought a carton of heirloom tomatoes, their colors as vibrant and real as anything I'd ever seen. I took a picture of them, just for me. There was no pressure to get the right angle, no one to critique the caption. It was just a snapshot of a happy, authentic moment. I had spent years chasing the perfect picture, but I finally understood that a perfect life isn't something you frame for others. It's something you build honestly and imperfectly for yourself.